Hello, everyone. I'm Nolan Myers, CEO of Double GDP, and we're building an end-to-end platform for cities to connect with residents, accelerate growth, and deliver responsive public services. I'm here today to bring you a sprint update for the sprint ending on July 8th, 2020. Let me dive in. So this sprint, as always, I'll go through the goals that we had, the top line goals, goals for product, and then talk about what we accomplished relative to those goals and what we aim to do for the next sprint. So our goals this sprint were to grow the weekly active users to 383, launch an artist in residence program at this Inkwashi site in order to bring more life to the site, make our content more engaging and informative, create a business directory of businesses that are approved to work on site, and improve our sales mailbox and task management within the application. So how did we do against that goal? Our goal was 383 weekly active users, and we unfortunately did not hit that goal this sprint. We found that we didn't get the same kind of response that we had seen with our initial campaigns. However, one of the things that we did at the beginning of this sprint was launch the Artist in Residence program, and we made an announcement there. And we started thinking this week about ways to grow users that were not logged into the application. And so one of the things that's interesting is that we've been wanting to think about what our weekly active users mean. And historically, we've only been capturing logged in users. So we've done a little bit of learning in this sprint about what our weekly active user number means. And a while ago, a few weeks, we rolled out Google Analytics, and we're looking at how that compares with the users that we've been tracking. Fortunately, the two data sets line up pretty well. If we look at the Google Analytics around users that have logged in, that's this line here, relative to the weekly active users that we've been tracking, and this is a 7-day average. The thing that's interesting about weekly active users is whether we want to start considering weekly active users that are not logged in. And so we started looking at that number this week and in this sprint, and we saw this huge spike. Now that was a little bit curious because this spike actually came largely before even the Artist in Residence program was announced. And so when we looked at that a little bit more in depth, we found that a lot of those numbers actually came from a bot. So as soon as we made content available to the public, some bots crawled the site and did a little bit of computer viewing of our content there. If we take that out, however, there were about 280 users that came in through that bot. But what's more interesting is if we take that out and look at how our application performed without that. And there are a few things to think about here. One is that our weekly active users that are not logged in are consistently higher than the ones that we've seen logging in. Now, this is for a couple of reasons we think. One is that this counts multiple devices. So if you log in, if you use the app once from your phone and once from your computer, we believe that this is counted only once for the logged in users, but it will count twice in terms of the overall users. The more interesting question is actually how these lines diverge in the last couple of weeks, where we've been pushing around non-logged in users for the Artist in Residence program. And the Artist in Residence program has in fact performed pretty much the way that we had wanted it to perform. It contributed about 180 users over the course of 2 weeks. We had hoped that we would get 150 users over the course of those 2 weeks. 150 users each week. So it's a little below what we had anticipated or what we had hoped for, but also a pretty solid start and a good base to build from. More importantly, I think what we're looking at is that our overall user base did grow in the last couple of weeks at the rate that we were hoping that it would grow, whereas our logged in user base did not. So this opens up a few interesting things for us as we think about the goal. Obviously, the weekly active user goal is to inspire growth and for us to be thinking about ways of adding value. It's clearly, we clearly didn't hit what we anticipated hitting in this week. in this sprint, but it does open up interesting questions for us. One, as to why there's such a gap. And one thing that Minsa mentions in her product update is actually that there's quite a high bounce rate of people trying to log in. We did some things in the last sprint to improve that, and a few things that we're going to think about in the next sprint as well. But this is definitely some area of thought for us. The other is thinking about how we want to think about users that are not logged into the app, and then how we help those create accounts. Anyway, so some interesting things thinking about weekly active users in this sprint that we will come back to as we think about our next sprint. So what else did we do in this program, in this sprint? Our first goal was to launch the Artist in Residence program. So we had our initial announcement of that go out through our partners at Chena, and we had 3 artists move into their house at Inkwashi. So you can see them here moving to the house and the house that they're going to be occupying. People living on site. And that's really the goal of this program, is that we want to be able to create a sense of life at the site that will be compelling and interesting and create good stories, and also create a core for the population and job agglomeration that ultimately is what creates great cities. So that first email went out and our artists moved in on July 1st. So lots more to come there. The second theme that we were thinking about is creating more engaging and informative content. And in this regard, we had a lot of good progress in this sprint. We had a new construction update, and another resident who is building their house, and we shared some of that with the Inkwashi clients. And then in terms of app features, we have now the ability to have comments on posts. So you can see here we have a view comments button, and you can see that there's a discussion thread starting within one of those. We also expanded our sharing capability. So rather than just sharing a link and copying and paste that into an application, now a user can go and directly post that link to this piece of content to a variety of different channels. And hopefully this will lead to more opportunities for viral growth when we do have a piece of content that's interesting. The other thing we did this sprint was we did a user survey and asked users of the application what they're most interested in seeing. And this actually surprised me a little bit, but the last time we did this survey, the thing that came out strongly was that people wanted to see construction updates. This time we learned that people are interested in seeing plots on their map. And this is from 75 responses, so pretty good responses. And then the other thing that surprised me a little bit was seeing community discussion boards. And that was exciting because one of the things that we rolled out in this sprint is in fact community discussion boards. We use the same feature around comments to do that. And this is the other interesting one here too, this the directory of businesses and Inkwashi documents, seeing documents that are related to your plot there. All of these are things that are on the things that we have been thinking about, but clearly a winner here in terms of seeing plots on the map. So that's something that we're going to give some focus to in the next sprint. Couple other things. We did roll out the business directory as we had expected and hoped to do, and also added this community discussion forum, which we're going to see how it works. Right now, it's pretty sparse, and there's only one discussion in the app, but this is something that we are curious to see how it will perform and whether users will discover it and gravitate to it. And then the fourth thing that we had hoped to do this sprint was sales mailbox and task management. We were able to make some progress around this general theme, and we rolled out labels on the back end, but we didn't make the improvements on the inbox that we had hoped to do. So that's something we'll come back and look at. This may actually be a little lower priority for this next sprint, so we'll see. It's not on the top of the list for next sprint either, but it's certainly something that we want to be getting to pretty shortly. And then there was a lot of other good news that came out in this sprint that that we had not planned for directly. We were able to structure support from multiple communities. So this is something, as we are thinking about bringing on new partners, we want to be able to have the app run with different communities and different sets of users. And there's some architecture work that Nicholas has been working on there to make that possible. We now have Google login for visitors to the site, people who do not have, who are not administrators of the site. And we made some really great progress on hiring and recruiting. So first of all, very thrilled to welcome a new engineer, Sarab, to the team. And he started today, and we're just really excited to have him on board. So welcome, Sarab. And then we had good progress in terms of recruiting for our UI design role and full stack engineers. And we met a couple of really great candidates for the head of customer success. So we have a little bit of progress there, but I still want to accelerate that. And then Jay talked a little bit about our presence at the New African Renaissance Conference. And this was a wonderful event put together by Muya and the team at Future Africa. And just a really exciting event, meeting really innovative and forward-looking members of the African community. I was honored to be included in the conference and to speak at a couple of panels, and just couldn't be happier with how that conference came out. So that's it for this sprint. What are we looking at the next sprint? So our goal is to grow the weekly active users to 464. Another big set of growth, but we do need to also think a little bit about what that's going to mean in the context of more open content. Right now we have some brainstorms that are taking place, both in terms of what the goal will mean, what are some things that we can do in the application that will accelerate our growth, things that we have in the app today that we might be able to take better use of. And we're also thinking about what are some step functions, things that that may not have been on our roadmap now that may help us grow this faster. So that's not a priority, I would say, in terms of the overall work that we're putting in this sprint, but something in terms of how we're thinking about our goals for the next sprint. The three things that we really are going to be focusing a lot on is supporting our artist in residence operations. We have this AIR acronym for it, but the artist in residence program just has a lot of logistics, sending out content, marketing updates, creating new types of content on the WordPress backend that we have. And there's just a lot right now that it's very manual, very tedious, and we want to coordinate between two people on our team and our partners at Chenna, be able to get content out quickly, show what's working, get feedback from it. And all of the operations around that are pretty new for us. So I think number one effort is just going to be trying to keep up with the demand that's going on there and make sure that program is running smoothly. Secondly, we are getting a lot of new users from that program, and we want to help them onboard to the application very quickly. Right now, there are some roadblocks around that, and we want to streamline that, make it easy for people to enroll on their own, and reduce the bounce rate from our login to on our login page to allowing new people to come in. And then third, we want to see if we can make some progress on these user requests around the Map My Plot and discussion boards. We have the initial discussion boards out, but right now have no usage. So we want to see it, probably learn a little bit about what people were asking for there and see if something takes place. And then this request around See My Plot, we want to see if there's something we can do there. So that's it for this sprint. Thank you for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.